Hey young artist, so here's my snake video. I made an upside down U and two curves on either side to make the snake's head. And then I put some little curves there in the inside of the head to make the eyes. I'm doing two big diagonal lines across. And I messed up that diagonal a little bit, so I'm fixing it up. I'm also drawing some vertical lines upward, and those are going to be the tree that my snake is wrapping around. So I'm twisting my snake in sort of an uppercase D, and then going with a backwards uppercase D, doing another long diagonal. Now I'm trying to fit my whole snake on the paper, so I made this diagonal a little bit less upwards and downwards. And now I'm tracing my tail, and I'm doing a bunch of little ovals at the end to make a sort of rattlesnake. Next, we're going to do the whole thing in Sharpie, so I'll be able to go over what I'm doing again. So I'm doing the lines of the tree, and when I'm trying to match up the lines of the tree with the ones that come next after my snake has been over the tree, and is the thing that you see, I can line them up really nicely with a ruler, or I can just sort of float my Sharpie over the part that I'm not drawing, just sort of hop over the snake and go to the next part. I think I end up using a ruler here so you can see my little demonstration of how I do this. There you go. I can see where my snake begins and ends, and I can see where the line lines up, so I'm just going to use that ruler to make that line nice and neat. Now I'm doing those ovals, circling them around, and it's going to look really nice when I'm done in Sharpie, and I like doing this in Sharpie because it makes it nice and bold, and I can fix any little errors that made the snake look not great. So you can see I made that uppercase D a little bit bigger just because it seems more natural for the snake to curve that way. Now I'm doing the eyes. You can do the eyes any way you want. I kind of didn't like the way I did them. I wish I just did them two circles on the top of the snake's head, but what are you going to do? These are, a lot of the times this is how I'll make a tree or tree bark. I'll just do some long lines, and what I'll do is I'm not pressing the Sharpie down on my paper as hard as I was when I was drawing the snake, and that's why you can see I have some slightly thinner lines than the ones I use to outline the snake, because I'm going pretty lightly, taking advantage of the tip that Sharpies have. They have that fine tip at the very top, so if you don't press them very hard, you'll get a thinner line. That's another nice thing about Sharpies. Now it's time to erase the things that I do not want. I'm doing this with my pencil cap eraser, getting all those details away. Usually I'd use just a regular full eraser, but this one works pretty nicely, so it's all good. I ended up erasing the tongue, which is fine. I mean, if I wanted, I could put like a little gecko or something in my snake's mouth if you want it to be that way. If you don't really want to think about what the snake's eating, you don't have to. Our snake is going to be a glamorous snake, so she doesn't have to hold any food or anything like that. And she's looking good. Very, very nice. So depth is demonstrating 3 dimensions in a 2-dimensional surface. And look, we can see our snake going around the tree like that, and it's almost like it's 3-dimensional because we can tell that the tree would have to be a cylinder to create this kind of depth in the work, and I just think it looks cool. I'm putting these diamonds on the back of my snake because this is a pretty common pattern to have on a snake, and as you know, patterns are repeating shapes or lines or icons or whatever they are over and over again. That's what makes a pattern. So we're doing these nice diamonds, and I'm doing this in crayon, and I'm doing this for a reason, because I'm going to do watercolor over it, and you all probably know by now how much I love the watercolor crayon resist. Putting some nostrils in there. And I'm going to do some big leaves in the background because I'm imagining that my snake is in a big rainforest, and I know in those big rainforests where they have the big trees, they have huge, big, leafy surroundings. So I thought I'd do some nice leaves in the background. They just always look good. I'm gonna add some veins to those leaves. And those are gonna pop out really nicely when I put my simple watercolor background. I think I'm just going to do a simple green watercolor background, and because I have this yellow-green crayon, those details will pop really nicely. So if you want to do a different background, you can. This piece isn't even really required. I just made this video because it's a fun project. Time to pull out my handy dandy watercolor set. Here we go. Looking a little dirty, but that's okay. And I think I'll just do blue probably for my snake. I've got some secondary colors on another watercolor set that I may end up using. And my cup of water and a big brush. Here we go. I'm just using a regular blue that's pretty similar to the color of my diamonds on the snake's back. But it still looks good. It's nice and uniform. Things match up, but I sort of wish that I used a different color, maybe orange, because that would contrast really nicely with that blue color. So if you want to do an experiment, I would suggest doing contrasting colors like blue and orange, or red and green, or purple and yellow for your crayon and watercolor combo. Going with a basic brown for the tree, not too much to point out here, just keeping it basic, not too thick with the color, not too light with the color. I think it looks nice. And now we've got that green background, which I was talking about before, and how nicely that's gonna make our crayon leaves like pop out on our paper. I'm adding a little blue to that mix to give it a little bit more depth, so I'm saying depth a lot, so that crayon pops even more. And it is popping even more with that difference in color. So this is another representation of how when the color is a little bit different, that crayon will pop so nicely. And since we add a little blue, making it even darker than that yellow-green crayon we had, it'll just look so awesome. And I really do think it looks great, in my opinion. Okay, we're getting towards the end here. This is just a fun project, and it's just a fun little thing that you can do over and over again. Doing my little bits of color, a little bit of purple in my rattlesnake tail, and then I can sort of, you always want to have a paper towel with watercolors to, if you put too much water on or something like that. Purple doesn't always adhere as well with colors. It's kind of a shame, but it's just the way it is. I decided to add a little bit more purple inside my diamonds because that crayon will hold that purple watercolor in and not let it transfer over or bleed over to the rest of diamonds. Now we're done. Bye, guys.